Hello, and welcome to episode number 7 of European UFOs. I'm your host, Sebastian, and if you like this episode, then please make sure to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps. When we think of UFOs, Finland might not be the first country to come to mind. Nonetheless, unbeknownst to many, Finland harbours a rich archive of UFO cases meticulously catalogued by researchers over the last 5 decades. In the course of this episode, we shall explore a very compelling case that stands as a testament to the mysterious and often dramatic nature of some of these cases. This singular incident involves multiple credible witnesses within Finland's military, a paper trail, and even reports of physiological harm inflicted on the key witness as a result of his close encounter with an unknown craft. Known as the Rovaniemi Airforce incident from 1971, it is undoubtedly one of the most significant cases in Finland, if not beyond. Here, with me to discuss Finnish UFOs, is Heikki Kulju, chairman of the Finnish UFO Research Association. Heikki is a seasoned veteran in the field of UFO research, with decades of experience under his belt. He's documented some of the most well-known cases in Finland's rich UFO history, including the 1971 Rovaniemi case. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to explore the secrets of Finnish skies and the mysteries that linger in the shadows. Hello, Heikki, and
Hello.
welcome to European UFOs. How are you doing?
Pretty good. No major problems. Everything's okay. It's just a little time change. Last night we go to the is it winter time or summertime or what? Winter time.
Yeah.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, I always get confused by that as well. Fortunately, my girlfriend told me that it happened. Otherwise, I would have probably missed the interview today. But yeah, it's strange that they still do this, to be honest. But yeah. Anyways, so is it already kind of a wintry setting in Finland, or
just a little bit? Actually, it's been pretty cold past couple of weeks. Surprisingly cold. But no snow here in West Finland where I live. Today, this morning, we got just a little bit snowing, but fortunately it's over. This is just a little bit too early for the winter.
Well,
we used to get the permanent snow sometime in December, and in a good case in January, because we are in western part of the country, about an hour from the Gulf of Bothnia due east. So the locality, the town is Lapua.
Well,
L-A-P-U-A.
Well, at least you get snow. So where I'm based here, it's only raining and dark, which isn't particularly nice, but, you have to get used to it. I'm used to it by now. So anyways, so Heikki, you're a man of many talents. So obviously it would be really interesting to hear a bit more about your background and how you got involved with UFOs.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. I've been interested in paranormal matters all my life, since the age of 10 or maybe 9, not sure exactly when it started. But the first thing I became interested in was the hypnotism. And I was seriously interested in hypnotism. And believe it or not, I was 14 years old when I was ready to hypnotize. And I started the hypnotism at the age of 14. But I have read everything I was able to get about the hypnotism, and that's how it started. I became interested in UFOs probably at the age of 14, but I do remember that the first thing I saw, my first impression was a cartoon. I was probably 8, 9 years old, and I saw the pictures of the flying saucers in the magazine. Of course, I did not understood exactly what it's all about, but I do remember it still, that I saw the pictures of the flying saucers and wonder what they are. And that's the first interaction to flying saucers. But at the age of 14, in the local library, I ran to a new books. They were George Adamski books, which I rented. I think I was the first person to rent them. And I loaded the books and that was the beginning. Immediately, I realized that this is something I take it very seriously, and this is very interesting, and I got to research it thoroughly. So that's how it started. And if we go a little bit further, 1973. We established the Finnish UFO Research Association. I became the member number or researcher number 20. And I've been involved with this organization ever since. I'll tell you a little bit facts a little bit later. But of course, in between the say 14 and about 20 years old, I tried to get I'll find all the books available about the UFOs, and that's how it started. But I've done many other things. I was interested in parapsychology and read everything about parapsychology and related sciences, and of course I was involved with the hypnotism very deeply, and that was really really interesting hobby. And I use still today hypnosis in investigating the abduction cases. I've had a few very interesting cases during my life.
Yeah. So when you got involved, or when you got interested in UFO research in Finland way back when you were a teenager, I suppose most of the literature was American English, or were there already some efforts by Finnish colleagues to publish things?
Yeah, the first books were translated in Finnish. I was probably 14 years old when the George Amarski books were translated to Finnish, and there was a couple of more other books. I don't recall the names, but anyway, and that's how it started. Then a little later, let's just jump a little different thing to my background. I was interested in magic tricks, not the magic, but magic tricks, magic performances, and I became interested in magic tricks when I was about 12 years old, and it turned out to be my occupation for 25 years, and I still perform magic shows, not professionally, but but on a regular basis. So I began order magic stuff at the age of 14 from the United States because they were not available here. I do remember that there was a company in Germany, at least one, and something in Sweden, and so forth. So I became involved with the importing goods and stuff and books and magic tricks and so forth. So, of course, I began order also books concerning UFO phenomenon from the United States. And my first trip to United States was 1973. We performed magic show in the USA. We went around the country, and also we performed in Ontario, Canada. So that was my first trip to USA, and I bought lots of books, and also I do remember that I bought lots of books concerning astrology, which was my hobby at that time, but not that much anymore. But it's an interesting subject anyway. That's the way it started. I started importing goods, which later in my life became very relevant thing to know how to import stuff, goods, products. So that's how I started. But I was interested in many areas: philosophy, religions, and so on and so on. And still, I am interested in those subjects and follow them on active basis.
Yeah, I think that's very good because it turns out the UFO phenomenon is obviously very complex, and to understand it, I think it's more than just a nuts and bolts phenomenon, and requires a multidisciplinary approach. So it's always good to keep an open mind and to explore different avenues. So when you were doing your or embarking on your career as a magician in the US, do you also have the opportunity to speak to US researchers back then? Or did that happen later? Because I know you're also internationally quite well connected with other UFO researchers. So.
Actually, 1973, when I started traveling to the United States, I've been there over 150 times so far and spent time a few years. We bought a house from Florida, 89, I think it was, and we had it about 18 years. I sold it because my business became so large that I had no time to travel, go to Florida. But that's after my magician career changed unexpectedly because I thought that mail order business is probably an interesting hobby. And when I was in Walmart, somewhere maybe in West Palm Beach or somewhere, and I saw a vehicle compass. They were selling it, and I thought that this is interesting. I haven't seen it in Finland. Maybe I could import this, and that's my business world started. And I started as a hobby, and it was supposed to be happy. I had no any opinion whatsoever. It changed my career from the professional magician to businessman. But that's how it started. I've been amateur radio operator, ham radio operator almost all my life. From the age of 14, I became a member of local radio club and so forth. And then a little later, I began importing amateur radio equipments from Japan. And then I realized that I had no time to perform magic shows because I had to be answering questions and phones were ringing and I got an order and it became very lucrative, good business. And I started from garage, and within a couple of years, I was the largest amateur radio dealer in this country. And then I added other stuff and acupuncture. I've been interested in acupuncture for a long time and still do acupuncture. And my youngest son is professional acupuncturist. And my daughter, she's also acupuncturist and so forth. So that's basically one. But when it comes to the meeting, I mostly had meetings with magicians when I was in the United States. And also I became a member to hypnotist group at the West Palm Beach area. And those were the people. I didn't met UFO people actually at all. So that became later, but I had no contacts with whatsoever to UFO groups. I don't know why. But anyway, that's the way it went.
Yeah. And I wonder, so as a magician, do you think it has given you a particular perspective on the UFO phenomenon? Because as a magician, you create illusions and, you entice the audience. And so did it give you a particular view on the evidence? Because unfortunately, in the UFO world, there are a lot of charlatans and hoaxes have happened. So I imagine that with that background, you might have a unique perspective on discerning what is real and what might not be real.
Yeah, not that much in the UFO area, but when it comes to the psychic things, that was enormous help that I was magician. And also I perform mentalism. So I know what it's all about. I know exactly. And this has tremendous advantage. I almost immediately was able to pinpoint if someone is not real. So lots of help, and of course everything else I've studied over the years has had some sort of effect to the UFO research. But to be a magician, you have certain view to the things, and you when you do the interviews and that sort of stuff, and the hypnosis as well, of course, it's also an important tool, and so forth. But everything some sort of effect. What I'm now from the background from the from the past.
And so you, over the years, you've investigated many, I don't know how many, but hundreds probably UFO cases in Finland. Have you ever had a personal experience with UFOs? Because for some of my guests I've had on the show so far, this has also been a catalyst to really get even more into the topic, having that experience of having witnessed something themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen UFOs 3 times. The first one was quite interesting because that was 80s, I think, was early 80s. I was driving from my town center to home, and I do remember that I visited in the bank. At that time, we got the receipts from the bank. I had a business at that time, and every morning I went to a bank and pick up the invoices or bank receipts from the bank, and I was driving back to home. It's about 1.5 kilometers, less than 2 kilometers to my home. On the way here, I was driving home, and I realized that there was some sort of small ball about 15 centimeters, like a silver ball. I first thought that it must be a soap bubble. The kids are blowing the soap bubbles, but then I realized because it's hovering about 3 meter height, and it came to my view, and I was slowly driving towards home. There's a speed limit. There's a rather small road, so there's a 50-kilometer speed limit. And when the silver ball, it was floating in the air and came to my side, I realized that this is not the salt bubble. It's something else. And I sensed that there is something intelligent in the ball. Of course, it was remote controlled, but I felt like there was a person, and the person smiled and sent some sort of hello or something like that. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to stop the car. But before I could do that, I had to watch the back view mirror. Is there someone behind me? And unfortunately, there was 2 cars behind me, and I couldn't brake. Press the brake pedal. And next time I tried to see the ball, it was gone. And that was absolutely the first time I heard this kind of silver balls, which were small. It took several years until I read it in the United States. Someone had seen that sort of small silver ball type UFO. And a little later, I heard a couple of stories from Finland about the similar experiences. So that was the first time. It was definitely a so-called UFO, unexplained. And it was not the soap bubble. I know that there was no kids in this particular place. I knew everyone, almost everyone, who are living in that particular area. So that was the first one. The next one was I was walking with my dog in one morning, early January morning, about 15 years ago, a little over, maybe almost 20 years ago. I was walking back to home, and it was a quite cloudy morning, and 7:30 in the morning. And I saw 3 stars on the eastern sky. They were in a triangle shaped. One light was up, 2 down. And then I somehow I watched that because there was clouds, but those were the only visible so-called stars. And unexpectedly, the lowermost point, the star, so-called star, which was not star, but started moving in about 45-degree angle and slowly moved behind the clouds. And I forgot to tell it that first it began to change, not the color, but it became very bright. In about a few seconds, it became, say, 20 times brighter what it was when I saw it the first time. And then it started moving. So that's the one. Third one was about 2 years ago. In mid-May, we were filming the documentary about UFO researchers for the YLE, the Finnish Broadcasting Company. And we decided to make one. All the filming was already done, completed, but the editor wanted to have a little addition, and we decided to do it because there was a person at this area about an hour from here who owned a searchlight that were used during the wartime. There's large, huge searchlights, and they pinpointed airplanes. So this owner said that he had seen several times plasma balls around the beam, around the light beam. So we went to film that. I hope that maybe we see some light balls. And I was about to interview the owner, and suddenly the owner, who was watching the southern sky, he said that, "What's that?" And I turned around and I watched the area. He pointed. There was a ball, brownish ball. It was not typical UFO color because they usually fluids or that sort of. But that was a brownish color. So, and suddenly another ball, similar, just appeared from the thin air. It was about the same size, about the size of a baseball. And it was visible only a few seconds, and then it suddenly disappeared just like that. And immediately the other one disappeared. And I'm 100% sure that this was nothing I can explain by traditional explanations. Never seen anything like this, but I've heard similar cases, and that was the third one. Nothing really drastic and sensational, but they have been interesting cases. And what I thought about the last case, I immediately thought that they, whatever they are, they knew what we are doing there. They wanted to get the Finnish to the documentary, and that was the Finnish. They didn't explain in the documentary what was going on. It was just because I spread my hands and did you see it?
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and it's kind of a recurring theme actually. So it reminds me of an episode I did a while back with Erling Strand about the Hessdalen lights, and there were also some interaction with flashlights and UFOs. So absolutely fascinating, and also this idea that they know, or whatever it is, this non-human intelligence presumably has some idea of what's going on. Reminds me of an interview I did with Eamon Ansbro, and they also did it in Ireland, and they also did a TV documentary, I think back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And there they also captured it on film on live television. So there is this sort of interesting connection. So in Finland, what do you do when you see a UFO? Can you report it somewhere? And how does that
we have a
happen?
website. We have had a website since early 2000, and actually, I was about to tell you because I had some fact info about the organization about these systems just briefly.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
So maybe let me see if I can. Okay. How about if in this point I read you the fact infos about the Finnish UFO Research Association? I've just collected some fact infos, just briefly what's going on.
Yep.
So it makes probably easier to understand.
Perfect. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the association was founded in 1973. So we are now 50 years old. The association is National Independent UFO Research Organization covering the entire Finland. We have about 300 members, of which about 50 are the UFO investigators, and about half of them are active investigators. The association has about 3,000 UFO reports on paper form and about 2,500 in a database. The association publishes a magazine called Contact. It is currently published twice a year. The magazine has an average 40-45 pages. We also publish we publish a book every second year. The new book was published on September 1st this year, 2023. The new book contains 330 pages. The book is hardcover and has 260 pictures. The book weighs 1 kilo. The first edition is already sold out. We'll get the second edition for the Christmas in about 2-3 weeks. Our board contains about 10 members, including spare members. We meet mainly using Zoom server. Meetings are usually 2-3 times in a month. We also have book sales and magazine. We also have book sales and organize 2 public seminars a year and a larger 3-day congress every second year. Our last 3-day congress was last September, the first weekend from Friday to Sunday. We receive 100 to 150 reports to our database of unidentified phenomena, or UAPs, each year. We have produced a TV documentary for YLE, the TV1, the Finnish Broadcasting Corporation. The documentary was shown last September on TV1 as a prime time show and in several reruns on other YLE channels. The documentary received very the documentary received very good reviews of viewers. This was the first UFO program on TV1 for 30 years. We were very proud that our most important TV channel wanted to cooperate with us. So we have recently been featured in several newspapers and magazines, talking about national magazines and newspapers. And that this has brought us lots of positive publicity. So that's basically what shortly about the organization.
Yes, that sounds. Thanks a lot for this overview. What do you think is, just in your opinion, is the general attitude of the public in Finland towards UFOs? Do you think there's an interest now also in the wake of that TV documentary you produced last year? Or is it something that's been ridiculed and people are not really interested in? What do you think?
I think their attitude has changed recently, or within past 3 years, considerably. Actually, we do receive very little negative feedback. Actually, it's minimal, especially after the documentary. We estimated, we thought that we might get lots of all kind of crap, but it was vice versa. The response was very positive, really positive, and we have received extremely little negative feedback. So attitude has changed within past three. I would say within past 3 years considerably. So of course there's a lot of skeptics. Mostly they are engineers and people who think that they know everything and they can use use the computer and scientific methods that they know everything, and when they studied 30, 40 years ago, all the facts are still valid and so forth. They're the worst, but I understand them. But generally, the interest to the UFO phenomenon has increased tremendously, especially because what has happened in the United States recently. It has changed also skeptics' attitudes, because now they know that even the government and Senate in the USA is interested in UFOs and UAPs, and they are investigating it. Although those who are in knowledge, those who know, they know that they have been studied UFOs since 50s, or actually, I think from the 1939, and ever since it's been investigated on several levels and areas. But now, when they're talking about Senate and Congress, it has changed the attitudes, and the same has happened in Finland. And as I said, we have had lots of publicity in the newspaper, national newspapers, and so forth. So it has changed their attitude. And
yeah, I mean, there's something also I've been thinking about quite a bit, and I've also come to realize is that ever since 2017 and that New York Times article, the world has changed, and the ripple effects are also, you can also feel them in Europe of that. So over the last few years, there has been quite a dramatic change also in the public attitude towards UFOs, and in particular with the media. The question is if you also want to include the legacy media in that, like BBC and so on. I think they've failed horribly in recent weeks with the David Grush story, but that's a different affair. And I think what you mentioned in terms of the skeptics, like engineers and so on, I think there's a fine line between being a good skeptic and being a debunker. And I think
right.
a lot of the things you see, a lot of the critique that has been levied against UFO research is really from the point of view, this can't be true, but I haven't seen the facts, but it can't be true. I think this is the mantra that's often put forward. But speaking of data, I know you've going to talk a bit about a particular case study which is really relevant, but just on a very high level for our audience, have there been phases in Finnish UFO research that stand out to you? Have there been like flaps, mass sightings of UFOs during particular decades? So I guess what I'm getting at is, have there been ups and downs in UFO activity in Finland?
Yeah, let's talk about the activity in our organization. Well, absolutely, there's been activity, up and downs, because the organization is 50 years old, And there's been we can downstream for a while before I came the chairman of the organization. Unfortunately, before that, it didn't go too well in the organization, and it took a lot of time to get it back to what it was when it started. Uh, of course, the organization has worked all the time, but not so well. There was a skeptic period also in this organization, and that was very negative when we think about it later. And so when I wasn't the member of the organization. I mean, not the chairman earlier, but I was the chief of investigators for a few years, also a board member and so forth. But then, uh, I was asked to start as a as a chairman, and I decided to change the course, turn the course entirely, and I did it, and I did lots of improvements and changes to the organization, and it has worked very well. Although I say it myself, but that's what has happened. Activity is very good nowadays. We have we have finally getting back to the same membership uh, amount what we had about 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It took a long time to get it because when I started, we had only 60 people in the organization. Now we have 300, and we're growing all the time. So in a small country, it's pretty good, and there seemed to be interest to become a member, and we started the magazine, and of course we have published books since the 73 about 20. Actually, every second year. So the book we published now was 25th book. So there's about 12 books earlier published in our organization, but the last one is the absolute the best we have ever done. This was also the 50-year anniversary book. But all these things have changed the situation, and organization is growing quite rapidly, because nowadays the situation is that it's really, really hard to get members. Whatever organization you have, I member many organizations because I'm involved in so many things. I'm amateur radio operator. I'm a pilot. I have an airplane. I'm a Rotary member, Odd Fellow member, and so forth and so forth. And I know what is the problem with every single organization. I forgot to mention magician organization, member of several magicians associations worldwide. So so that's the problem. But I'm happy to find out that a UFO organization is growing up all the time. So that's very, very positive, and we're working for that. And we have lots of plans for the future. And for the West, we have got very important people to become our members. So we've got several professors already, and doctors, and X-ray doctors, and anesthetic doctors, and whatever. So very good people who are and have been interested in UFOs in the past, but they never speak about it. So that's also important that we get that sort of people to join to our organization.
Absolutely, and I think that's also one of the changes in recent years, probably since around 2017, that particularly in the US, notable researchers and academics have also come forward incrementally, with a valid interest in this subject. So I think that is very important. And so I suppose that as the numbers are increasing of within your organization, that also the number of sightings goes up, because I suppose that if you have more people looking into this, you will also increase the overall number of
Yes.
sightings. Yeah.
Yeah. And what
Yeah.
is most important, after the documentary, I noticed this very clearly. People were not anymore afraid to report of the sightings. They have had sightings. They had what had happened when they were been child. So I got the tremendous amount of phone calls after the documentary because it was shown at the prime time on TV1, which is the so-called our official TV channel. Like I said before, they haven't shown anything about the UFOs in about the past 30 years. So this was the first one, and in Finnish, and they realized that okay, those guys are nice. I was not the only one. I had a couple of other members from the association. I as my helpers, and they noticed that oh, those are nice guys. They do not try to ridicule them and so forth. And so they were not afraid to call me. So I got many very interesting cases. They were mostly old cases, maybe 30 years, but they were remarkable cases. And they talk about it for the first time. Several people never talk about this because my father, I was about 15 years old, and my father told us, you are not going to talk about this to anyone. They're going to say that we're crazy if you talk about it. And they believe it, and they didn't talk about it. So that sort of so-called old incidents, we were recorded several, not necessarily the new, but of course we received about the same rate, about 100 to 150 reports in a year. They are mostly traditional light balls and that sort of stuff, which I pretty much, to be honest, a little bit boring for the UFO researcher, because you have heard about those balls moving on the sky, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But anyway, every now and then there's something very important like abductions and that sort of stuff, and close encounters and so forth. Of course, the light balls are okay if they move, say, at zigzag form and do not move like a satellite straight line and so forth and so forth. But
Yeah.
we have hundreds of them.
Yeah, and I found the opening episode of your show really interesting, with this mobile phone capture of a light ball from the window. I think it was a woman who woke up at night because her partner was snoring, and then
Oh,
she, yeah,
have you
yeah.
seen the document?
I've seen all of them. Yeah, yeah. It's
Really?
absolutely amazing. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, I didn't know that. Where you managed to get it? Because it was widely, they haven't released it, or is it already turned internationally?
It's internationally on the Arena kind of, there's an online platform where you can just watch it, and even with English subtitles, so it's
Oh,
pretty neat.
really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. No, no, it's
Oh,
absolutely really, 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 really great. Yeah, and yeah, and as you mentioned, also that UFO abduction case with that gentleman who you then put under hypnosis was also fascinating. Yeah,
yeah, right. Very interesting
yeah,
case. And
yeah, yeah.
I've got one probably even more interesting case. But the lady, she's psychologist by her occupation, and she's very cautious because she's still working professionally. Of course, she is. She do not want to be reveal that she's something a crazy person, because she's experienced the abduction. Or actually, it was not abduction. It was that she's been earlier in a previous life uh, some sort of like a psychologist. She said that not like here on the Earth, but the similar occupation in the spaceship. And the spaceship where she was the very advanced holographic computers and whatever she had there, and she was the ship was sort of like an in earthly terms an ambulance. They helped the planets which were in danger, or actually something drastic had happened uh, at the particular planet. So they were asked to go to help, and she was part of this team. And it was very, very interesting. Lots of information and um, lots of details. And she was so surprised because she was a psychologist, and She had studied just become interested in UFOs about a year earlier. And that's how it started. It started so that one morning she saw a very strange mark here between the thumb and the first finger. It was so peculiar mark that she began to talk that it must be something very, very strange happened. She already thought that probably an abduction or something, and she wanted to be hypnotized. That we can somehow explain how the mark on the hand had appeared there, and they explained it. It was nothing else. I suspected that there's an implant, but she said no, it was not implant. It was just to arouse her mind that something has happened, and this mark somehow was some sort of catapult, so that it wake her up a little. And in a hypnosis, we were able to get the details about this and lots of other things. But there's a lot of things to do. But she's very cautious now, and it takes time to that she can understand what has happened, because everything was new to her, and it was so important experience to her. But we will continue one day going through the details.
Yeah, but I mean, looking where the world is headed, I'm glad there might be an intergalactic ambulance floating around somewhere. I think that would be very helpful for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, congrats to that show. I think it's really well done, and the people you've interviewed and the cases you've investigated, you can tell that there really is something substantive behind them. So it's especially the one you mentioned earlier with the World War II flashlight going up into the sky, because this, you could just tell this is a no bullshit guy. He just lives there and then had this experience. And so it's very fascinating. I'll make sure to put a link to the show in the podcast description so people can check it out. And as I said, it's also available with English subtitles, which is definitely a great thing. So in doing my research for this episode, I came across the 1970s as a particular dramatic episode in Finnish UFO sightings. And I think it's peculiar because also you've got parallel developments in the US and also other countries. And it's always the early 1970s up until the mid 1970s where you see lots of UFO activity. Mm-hmm. And so I gather you've brought a case with you that you can share some insights about from that era.
Yeah, there's been many remarkable UFO incidents around 70s, and even earlier. But my records are mostly after 73, after the establishing the Finnish UFO Research, the FUFORA. So, but there's been many interesting cases. And as I said, we have 3,000 paper reports, and we haven't gone through this material as yet. I mean, it's been, of course, those who were involved 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they probably know this about these cases, but it's so enormous task. And it's developing now that we will send all 3,000 reports to Sweden, and they will scan them for us because they have a staff and very active. I'm sure you know to whom I'm referring, Klaus Swan and his
Yes, yes.
organization. So Klaus was lecturing for us near Helsinki in early September in our convention, and we decided that we will ship the all the files to Sweden, and he's got the staff who can scan everything, and that makes our life a little bit easier. Our organization is much smaller, and we do not have government help as they have. They employ people for them, and and so forth. So 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 that will
Yeah.
help, and we can get the easier way to check out what they have had in the past.
Especially, I mean, yeah, absolutely. You can even put an AI to work to go through all the documents and analyze patterns. I think going digital is the way forward. So it's fascinating. Yeah. And so I believe you have a case study you wanted to focus on a bit more in detail, right? The
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have actually I've translated this case. This is very interesting case from the year 71. But the reason why I wanted to go to this particular case is that I've involved this case personally. I've investigated it from the very beginning, and before I started, I've written because there's so many different steps over the years. This began from 2006. And how it started, how I learned about this case, the Rovaniemi military depot case from the year 71, was that I said that it was an accident, but I do not believe in accidents. I don't think that there's such thing as an accident. But it looks like some sort of accident. So I get the info about this case accidentally. And it happened this way that my wife's sister, she's married to a guy who has been working, not that he's retired now, but 2006 for the telephone company. And they had stopped to a gas station to have a cup of coffee. And they met another group of telephone company workers. And at least we joke here in Finland that you will meet the telephone company people at the gas station drinking coffee. so, so that's what happened. Anyway, so when they were drinking coffee, they had began talking about the army times. We have a compulsory army in Finland. So it's from 6 months to 11 months. Not anymore. It's not that compulsory. What it was when I was in army, around the same time, 70. Actually, I was in 69 in army, but I was radio operator, telegraph operator, or Morse code operator, because I was ham radio operator. But anyway, so they began talking about what had happened in the army. And one of the guys had a story that one of my friends, the roommate actually, had very strange thing happen when he was in army in Rovaniemi. And well, I'm not going to talk about it more, but that's how I got the information, because my wife's sister's husband knew that I'm involved with the UFO research. So he called me. He understood. It was clever because he understood that it was an important case. So when he visited here, he began to talk about what he had heard. So my first reaction was, do you have the name of the person who was involved in this? Do you have his telephone number? And it didn't take more than probably 3 days. I had this person's name and his telephone number. So that's the beginning. But I do not think that was accidentally received information. It has a purpose. But so I translated my Finnish version. This is abbreviated because this is complicated and a little confusing case. So I'm going to read it to you, what's going on. So
Sure.
the title is The Case of the Rovaniemi Military Deport in 1971. In many ways, this case is one of the most special and confusing UFO cases in Finland. There have been many interesting steps and twists and turns over the years in investigating this case. What makes it significant is that there have been military personnel involved, and the incident has taken place in a guarded military area. In addition, there is a case we were able to find military documents to prove that the incident is true. I used the nickname Simon for the Air Force soldier who has a major role in this case. He didn't want to reveal his own name. Simon was still in the military service at the time of my first contact with him. When I interviewed him the first time, Simon expressed his concern that he did not want to be questioned about what he had said, meaning the military. So what happened? Simon was performing his army service in Rovaniemi Airforce garrison in the Arctic Circle, 1971. The incident occurred during the guard shift on August 23, 1971 at 1:30 a.m. local time. That night, Simon was on guard duty in the military storage area near the city of Rovaniemi. The dramatic course of events began in the midst of the night. Simon was walking around the storage area when he noticed reflecting light from the road. That road leads to a storage cave tunnel, which is built inside the base rock. The guardrail runs somewhat higher than the road to the storage tunnel. After walking a little closer to the road, overlooking the road and the entrance to the tunnel, he walked closer to the edge of the hill so that he had a clear view of the road. Simon described the light and the object as a bluish light similar to a gas flame. He walked closer. He found an object floating on the road. He saw a round object floating, but could not see the windows or other details from the object. The case assessment was also difficult as he looked at the UFO from above the cliff, which is higher than the road. He first thought of a truck on the road. As he got closer and had a straight view of the object, immediately he realized that it was quite something other than a human-made device. The object was a circular shape and about 3 to 4 meters in diameter. It was silent. The object had landed on the road leading inside the tunnel, near the doors of the storage tunnel. Simon was now about 50 meters from the object standing on the cliff. At this point, Simon also realized that his friend was inside the tunnel, beyond the doors, serving the guard duty inside the tunnel. Awareness of this situation was of particular concern to Simon because the UFO was so close to the doors. Simon decided to act. He had a flashlight with him, and he pointed the flashlight beam towards the UFO. Immediately, he heard a strange sound from the object. Simon was scared and thought he was in danger. He decided to fire his gun at the target floating on the road. After firing apparently 2 shots towards the UFO, it quickly began to glide silently backward and in a few seconds disappeared. The target did not ascend straight up but flew backward and sideways out of sight. Simon couldn't tell how long the encounter lasted. However, Simon did not believe that there was so-called missing time phenomenon involved. But he couldn't be completely sure about it because of the shock. Simon had dropped the gun on the ridge in a panic and started to run towards the supervisor's residence. Immediately after the shooting, the UFO, which had disappeared from view. According to Simon, the military conducted an investigation. A researcher had come from Tikkakoski garrison from central Finland to find out what had happened. Simon has no information about the results of the study. As a result of the encounter, abscesses appeared on Simon's feet. Because of this, Simon was in the care of an army doctor. Symptoms were suspected to be caused by radiation. Simon says that the traces left permanent marks on his feet. They were still visible after decades. We heard that a radio amateur who lived nearby had talked about exceptional radio interference during the event. More about this later. Another conscript, got it, inside the cave, was unaware of the incident because he was about 100 meters from the doors of the tunnel. The experience had been very stressful for Simon. He was very reluctant to talk about it, even though it had occurred a long time ago. In almost every phone conversation, I had to persuade Simon to tell me the details of the case. The interviews have revealed a strong state of fear about what had happened. Further information I had the phone interview with Simon a few weeks later. This was the second phone interview with him. He was very reluctant to talk about the incident, but after a while, he changed his mind and we talked about the incident for about 20 minutes. In this conversation, an interesting fact emerged that Simon is working in the same place where the UFO encounter had taken place, 1971, the Rovaniemi Airforce base. This, of course, partly explains why he was very reluctant, very concerned about digging up the case. The concern was obvious because he was on an army payroll, and apparently he thought it might have a negative impact on his career. After we had gone through the case interview, I asked for the opportunity to call him again for the further clarifications. Simon gave permission to do it. I decided to proceed with caution. I called Simon again a few weeks later, in 2006. I will try to clarify a few more things about the case and also reconfirm the course of events, as well as verify the consistency of the data compared to my previous interviews. Simon was still very concerned again and not very willing to talk about what had happened. In practice, so I started the interview again from almost zero. After a long discussion, Simon calmed down and we got to go through the case again. A new interview in the case confirmed the information I had already received. The description was exactly the same as in my previous interviews. I asked Simon if he was forbidden to talk about the incident. According to Simon, he had not been explicitly banned from talking about it. He said that it was forbidden to talk about what was going on in the army or things related to army or what was being stored in the storage depot. I also asked to get the permission to come to meet Simon in person in Rovaniemi, but he refused. The experience had been very tough for Simon. He said the case is still on his mind on a daily basis. At this point, I decided to wait for Simon to retire from the army. His retirement was not too far away. The next step, I tried to contact the former commander of the Air Force. I called him 2 times and he did not answer to my call. The commander's name is Rovaniemi. He should have been in service at that time of the UFO incident. Finally, he called me back on November 10, 2015. And he said that he was not aware of that UFO incident during his tenure. He had no recollection of such a case, he said. This made the event even more mysterious. I suspected that what he told me was not true. I had a Zoom meeting with him in 2021. I interviewed Rovaniemi a couple of times, 2021 by Zoom. The first interview was a kind of exercise for the Wiley TV documentary we were filming, which was supposed to record the next day. We had a general discussion about unrecognized phenomenon and the military's perspective on the matter, and so on. The next day, our conversation about our Zoom conversation was recorded for the documentary. Mr. Merrier did not say anything new and significant. Personally, I thought couldn't be like that. But what you can do. However, the case on Merrier's side has not yet been completed. More about it later. More information, we jump a little bit backwards. More information on November 16, 2015. This case seemed to be of interest to the general public. In my presentations, I have repeatedly spoken of the case. I have had a number of public appearances, presentations, YouTube videos, and so on. One of the YouTube videos has been watched 44,000 times. So again, I got another very significant tip from a taxi service owner in Rovaniemi who contacted me. He said he knows who the radio amateur operator involved in the case is. At this point, he did not know the name of the amateur radio operator, but he knew where he lives because he had given him taxi rides. The taxi driver promised to let me know when the name is known. So I received a phone call on October 30th, 2018. He informed me that he now knows the name of and the phone number of the amateur radio person. He had also received permission from the person that I can contact him and discuss the case with him. Now the case got a new, very interesting and very significant direction.
Yeah, no, so it sounds absolutely fascinating, Heikki. So you have multiple lines of evidence converging. It's a military case. I mean, it's kind of the Finnish Rendlesham Forest, almost what it sounds like. It sounds fascinating.
Hey,
But
do you want to hear the rest of the story?
yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, because there's much actually
Mm-hmm.
abbreviated, but there's much interesting twist. So
Yeah.
the name the taxi driver informed me his name was Heino Aho. We had a long phone chat with him on October 30th in 2018. He came in to use his own name in the case. To my astonishment, he had worked in the storage area as an intelligence officer for years. His hobby was ham radio, or amateur radio as it's called in Europe. He had been on radio working with another amateur radio station in USA. The call sign of this US amateur radio operator is WV0AME. Unexpectedly, during the radio contact at 22:40 GMT, or local time 1:40 AM, the receiver suddenly went completely muted. He first suspected that the antenna had disconnected or something similar had occurred, but all the connectors were closed and no visible faults was found in the equipment. But the receiver and the transmitter were completely muted, which was completely incomprehensible. It had never before occurred. The exact time of the radio contact to USA and other relevant information was recorded in his logbook. Keeping a logbook of the radio contacts was mandatory at the time. The time must be very precise in this case, as it was in a reported of the officer and the amateur radio operator, who is well accustomed to this kind of routine entries. All radio contacts are recorded in logbook precisely. That's why we have very accurate time of the UFO landing close by. The next day, he entered on logbook additional remark UFO. After the other details of the interrupted contact previous night, the case progressed so that shortly after the issue with the radios, Heino Aho heard a knock on his door. And there was an airman, the guide, looking distressed, white, pale, the pale face, and he was out of breath, and came to report what had happened. Simon announced that he had fired at the target in front of the tunnel. Immediately, Heino Aho realized that something very exceptional had occurred. After hearing that the security guard had fired at the target, firing on a guard duty is a very significant case that causes immediate action. Heino Aho put the clothes on and they left the scene together. Simon had told Heino that he had thought the truck had entered the mouth of the storage tunnel, but had immediately realized that no one had opened the gate to the storage area and let anyone in the area. Guard Simon had said that he had walked closer to the reflecting light. He had seen round, bright object about the width of the road in front of the tunnel doors. He had first pointed the object with the flashlight beam, and the UFO had reacted to it. Simon said he heard a strange sound from the object when the light from the flashlight beam hit the object. Simon was very scared, and he told Simon was very scared, and he thought that the target was attacking him. Then Simon fired a few shots at the ship, with a machine gun. According to earlier version, 5 shots, but according to Heino Aho, 2 shells have been found in the investigation. As soon as the shooting took place, the ship had risen slightly higher and moved backward, leaning slightly to the side and leaving the area. According to Heino, the guard acted as instructed. He fired at an unauthorized entry to the secret military area. Finding former intelligence officer Heino Aho has had a very significant role in the investigation of the case. Heino Aho also talked about an interesting coincidence that happened in Tikkakoski garrison for many years later, apparently at the time, sometime at late 80s. The army officers had a meeting in Tikkakoski. There was some kind of get-together with the military officers. It was an official meeting. Everyone was wearing military outfits. Heino told me that a person in civilian clothes approached him. He did not know the man. This person has started asking about the Rovaniemi UFO case. Heino had wondered about the exact details of the interviewer about the case. This man had been particularly interested in the details of the case and asked several questions concerning the Rovaniemi occurrence. The person was the only person wearing civilian clothes in this event. This case was not known in Finland at that time, except by those who were involved with it somehow. This means that the military in this country have people who investigate this kind of phenomenon. So the next step in the investigation, I was contacted by a person who was not a UFO researcher, but was very interested in the case. This person had searched the files concerning this case for about 2 years. He told me, I started by going through the microfilm archives from 1969 to 1972 to see if there were any other similar observations in the public at the time, and if something special had happened in the press during August 71. There were quite a few interesting and surprising articles about the UFOs at that time. As the search continued, he managed to find 4 pages of original military records concerning this case. The military documentary findings are very relevant to this case and confirmed the authenticity of the incident. For the first time in Finland, we were able to get original investigation report from the military. It is also interesting to note that possible radioactivity had been investigated in the incident area. That was indicated in the documents we got. The document indicated that the person who shot the UFO said in an interview that he had suffered some type of radiation injury to his feet. He told of traces that had been left on the feet, and the marks were visible there for the rest of his life. Another significant fact that appeared in the records is that not all the documents related to this case were not released. For some reason, they did not release all the documents related to this case. Now, however, we know that there are more documentaries, and the case is not closed yet. Thanks to the evidence we obtained, these new documents make this case one of the most significant UFO cases in Finland. And now, back to Rovaniemi, former commander of Rovaniemi Airforce Base. He totally surprised me with his email of September 4, 2021. Here's the email. It's abbreviated. Hello, Heikki. I want to revisit that incident in Rovaniemi, especially the shots fired by a security guard. I had only been the commander of Rovaniemi Airforce Base for less than a week. We took the guard's report of the UFO sighting seriously and were confident he was telling the truth. The case, however, remained a mystery. Then there's a little bit about the documentaries in Rovaniemi. I didn't tell earlier about it, but he has a comment to the missing documents. In an interview, I asked him. I heard from Heino Aho that there has been documentaries in Rovaniemi, but they have been destroyed later. So he comments. I asked this the commander, and he replies in this email. There was never any reason for the deliberate destruction of documents during my tenure, and such an action was never taken. However, I doubt that there are more research documents available on the case. At least I don't recall any, except those 4 pages of documents were found. Signed, Rovaniemi. So, about these documentaries, of course, they destroyed the documents in Rovaniemi, but the original copies, were sent to Helsinki archives. So that was confirmed a little later. So, well, I think I know why the commander's memory recovered unexpectedly. The reason was simply that we found out those original army documents, and he was aware of this because they're available on our website. Maybe he estimated that sooner or later we'll get more documents proving that he was the commander and commander of the Air Force Base at that time, and he was aware of the incident. In this way, we also received confirmation from the commander. So, the Rovaniemi case of 1971 has become one of the most significant and authentic UFO cases in Finland. Thanks to the evidence we obtained, these new documents have elevated this case most significant UFO cases in Finland's history. That's noteworthy about what's noteworthy about this case is that all the individuals involved were military professionals. The guard who carried out the military service at that time wasn't a conventional full-time serviceman, but rather transitioned into a military professional afterwards. And he served pursuing a career in the military as a technician or engineer for the rest of his life. So the Rovaniemi case 71 has now solidified its place as one of the most substantial and authentic UFO cases in Finland. Its significance lies in the fact that it occurred within an army depot area, and all those involved were army personnel. So, in a nutshell, this is the case.
Thank you so much, Heikki. I mean, this has been very educational. It's a great case. I think it's not only one of the, as you said, best cases in Finland, but also internationally. And this is why, for me, it's really important to bring people like you on the show because, abroad, no one really knows of such wonderful cases. So it's amazing. And you also have these different lines of evidence coming together. So eyewitness accounts, documentary evidence, and then even physical traces, unfortunately, which had a bad health impact on that individual. But yeah, very fascinating. Two things came to my mind as you were recounting this case. The first is, do you have any idea of what might be stored at that army facility?
Oh, good question. Good question. Yes. Okay. Yes. But it took a couple of years, but maybe 3-4 years until I began to think about it. Why? Why the UFO was seen at this particular place and close to the tunnel doors? Well, suddenly I realized that where the UFOs have been seen worldwide, usually in a military area, at the military area, and the area where some way the nuclear weapons are somehow related to this. Of course, I can guarantee, because Finland is and has been a nuclear-free country as far as I know, and always, always. And by the way, I asked this question from the commander as well. He was a very nice, polite man, but when I asked this, his attitude more changed.
Yes.
Very, very quickly. It was a drastic change because he's a very nice, polite man. He was, by the way, he celebrated 19th birthday, I think last week. I met his granddaughter at the psychic fair, or it's not really psychic fair, but in Helsinki, where I was lecturing 2 weeks ago in the mid-October. And even her daughter, because she was interested in this kind of stuff, because the fair was the name is something translated something like the fair of the psychic affairs and the knowledge. A little bit complicated name, but that's the purpose. It's been about 40 years every year in Helsinki, and I've been lecturing there earlier, and I had an interview which lasted about an hour. A person who was writing a blog, he interviewed for me about an hour, and there was 2 girls, or actually lots of people were passing by, and this particular couple passed by several times, and finally she came to me, and I'm the granddaughter, the Rovaniemi, the commander, and she told me that she has asked him about this case several times, but not even to her. He had not revealed anything. But I asked her, okay, go ahead and continue asking. Maybe he will reveal something. And he was, by the way, finishing his book at the present time. And in Marius' case, is another interesting thing is that he has translated a book about humanoids sometime in 80s. I've never seen it, but I know that it's true. He had so he have interest to the UFO phenomenon, and because otherwise no one couldn't go to the job and translate the book to Finnish. It's an enormous task. Now it's a little bit easier today, but the 80s you have to do it manually, and nowadays it goes a little bit faster, and it's probably a little bit easier. Yeah. But anyway, it was a positive, nice surprise to meet her granddaughter who was interested in this phenomenon, and it was good to hear that he was still alive and in good condition. He's been an athlete throughout his life, and also a pilot, of course. He's a fighter pilot by his background, and we had lots of talk about the flying because I've been the pilot for 2,000 hours myself. So. And little addition, if you want to hear, right after my lecture in Helsinki, mid-September, someone called me, a lady from Rovaniemi. Originally, he had been working as a physiotherapist in Rovaniemi. And he called me and said that I know the person. We're talking about Simon. I know him because he's been in her treatment several times, and he know the problems. And she told me that he never told him what had caused those abscesses and marks on his skin. They were also on arms and elsewhere in the body, not just in the feet, as we originally were aware. So, so he had treated him several times, but he never mentioned anything. And the nurse or the physical therapist told me that was not good because he did not told him or her what was the cause, that the radiation was the reason for the abscesses or mics, permanent mics on his body. So that was that was a nice little addition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this started 2006, and still we got that little pieces of information. And if I may continue about the the possible cause why that this spaceship, flying saucer, UAP, was had parked in front of the tunnel doors, is that I began to suspect that the only possibility is that there's something to do with the nuclear stuff. And unofficial information. This is by no means anything that I can prove, but a person, because I've talked about this many times in several occasions, told me that maybe the Swedish people, Swedes and Finns together, had prepared something together at 70s. I do not know, but that makes me wonder. And my point is that at that time, 71, we had Swedish Draken fighter planes and Russians MiG airplanes. And I'm pretty much sure that they're not interested in those planes. They're so primitive. There must have been much more important things which it has some sort of concern with the aliens.
Yeah, that's also why I asked, because there's a very well-known almost correlation between UFO appearances and the sites of nuclear storage facilities. Robert Salas in the US, and I think in Germany there have also been instances where this has been reported. So, yeah, makes you wonder what was at the other side of that tunnel. Very interesting. And I love cases that develop organically over the years where, eyewitnesses come forward and you have more evidence that you can place together in that puzzle. Just to wrap this up, is there a formal procedure in Finland, like a Freedom of Information Act system, where if you want to gain more knowledge about a case, can you then write a letter to the government and they will disclose information, or does that as such not exist?
Not the similar as in the USA, the freedom of information law. But of course, we can apply. The guy who found the 4 pages of the original Army reports with the with the staples and names of the captain and whatever there is, so they are official, and we have copies on our website on the fufora.fi, and this is case number. Unfortunately, it's not in English, so this is a little bit problematic. But anyway, they are available there. So we'll try to make English version on our website as soon as possible. But we have been very, very busy. But we can apply. So-called forbidden secret information, but no law like that. But
excellent. Heikki, you've been very generous with your time and it's been very informative. absolutely amazing case study. Great overview of what's going on in Finland. On a closing note, what's keeping you busy these days? What's on the agenda for next few weeks?
Although I'm supposed to be retired, I sold my major business, but I forgot to mention that 2000 I started importing woodworking and metalworking machinery, and also the ham radio equipment, and I sold it after 10 years. It grew up very big business, and I thought that after selling the business. I have more time, but I've never been as busy what I've been past few years after selling the import export business that what I had. We still have acupuncture product line, but my youngest son, who is an acupuncturist, he takes care of that. So, the UFO research gives me more work than anything else, and we have all kind of projects going on. We're planning now the next spring a one-day convention, which will be in the city of Tampere. And I just booked Gary Heseltine from UK to one of the lectures. It's a one-day event. So and we have just one international speaker there, and the two other guys from Finland who are very good experts on this field. And lots of things going on all the time, and still perform magic shows and many podcasts like this. There's several in the line waiting, waiting. But anyway, I enjoy talking about this subject. So it's been great pleasure talking with you.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Heikki. Where can people find more about UFO research in Finland? I suppose your website is a good starting place.
The problem is that everything is in Finnish at the present time, so there's not much material in English. So that's the problem we are trying to solve. We have to get some language experts who are willing to work, and because it is a lot of work translated everything to English. Of course, by using translator, you can go to our website is www.fufora, like FUFORA .fi, Fufora. So there you can find our main page, and you got to go to investigators, or actually reported cases, and there is about 2,500 cases reported. And this particular Rovaniemi case, what I talked about earlier, is case number 91. Case 91. With the translator, you can get a little bit further more information than I was able to talk here. But I can tell you that there was many twists and turns in this investigation. I didn't have time to talk about, especially with this person Simon. And by the way, he's already passed away about 4 years ago. And if you want, I can tell you one more little addition to this, if you have time.
Yeah, go ahead. Or always up for more information.
About 4 years ago, I wanted to reconfirm a couple of things from the Simon. I had his telephone number on my desk at least 2 weeks, and I thought that, okay, now I got to call him. Finally, one particular Monday morning, I thought that, okay, now I must do it. And I called him, and it took a long time that he answered. So I thought probably he's not going to answer at all. I don't know what has happened. But he suddenly answered. But immediately I realized that something is very, very wrong. Something is going on. Something bad is going on. I could tell his voice and his way to talk. And then he said that I'm waiting for an ambulance. I have a cancer, which is spread all over. I'm going back to hospital. And oh boy, and he was in pain. I can tell you that he was in pain. And I thought, what I'm going to do? Can I ask anything? Because I knew immediately that this is the last moment. I'm not going to meet this person anymore. So I thought, can I ask you one question? Just one question. I reconfirmed the time when this UFO case occurred, because what I didn't tell here, we had the first time we thought that it was 1974, which was find out a little later, before I called him, the correct time. So I wanted to confirm this. And I said, can I ask you one question? And he was soft, kind of a soft speaking guy. He didn't raise his voice or anything. He was soft talking guy. I noticed that he collected his strength, and he talked very forcefully. This couple of 3-4 sentences, and he reconfirmed everything that when he was in army, it was 71, and this occurred in August 23rd, and so forth and so forth. And that was it. I called him the last possible moment. Last possible moment. So that's one more extra incident to the case. So as I said, there's many, and even more things that are somehow remarkable.
Yeah, it really is a remarkable case with many different facets, and the mystery continues. It's going to be very exciting to see what further evidence crops up.
We managed to get the rest of the documents.
Yes,
so we know that they have most likely they have investigation report what it was, but they didn't want to reveal what was their conclusion to the case.
Yeah.
So that's why they released only the 4 pages, the four pages written in Rovaniemi and signed by the captain and whatever officers.
Yeah, fascinating. Heikki, you've been very generous with your time, and I'll make sure to include all online resources where people can find you, including the show, the documentary produced last year, which is amazing. I will also link that in the description. And it would be great to have you on the show again at some point. I feel you're working a lot of things simultaneously, which is very fascinating. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.